Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Microsoft Purview Information Protection Ninja Training. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Emily Blindo, and I'm part of our Microsoft Purview MIP and DLP product team. During this short video, I'll be doing a brief introduction to information protection in our Purview portal experience. So to get started with information protection and labeling, we first want to understand where your organization is today regarding information protection and discovery of your sensitive information in existing repositories. When you first come into the Purview portal, I think it's very important to take a look around at all of the different options before diving in. The first topic I want to go over today is data classification. Here you will identify the types of information you need to protect, and then we'll work on where this information is stored. Within M365, we have a few different ways to classify data. We can utilize trainable classifiers, custom and built-in sensitive information types, EDM, and document fingerprinting. We won't be showing you document fingerprinting today, but for awareness, document fingerprinting is a feature that converts a standard form into a sensitive information type. Some examples may be government forms or HR forms. The main classification feature used in the first step in most deployments is the built-in sensitive information types. Sensitive information types are used to help identify sensitive items so that you can prevent them from being inadvertently shared or inappropriately shared. These 200 plus built-in sensitive information types are created by Microsoft and show up in the compliance console by default. Some examples include social security number, credit card number, and some recently released ones include password sensitive information types, physical addresses, full names, and medical terms or conditions. If these pre-configured sensitive information types don't meet your needs, you can create your own custom sensitive information types that you fully define, or you can copy one of the built-in ones and modify it. So I won't go into this too in depth, but for a brief introduction, I do want to show you the US Social Security number, sensitive information type. So I can just go ahead and search on the right-hand side, go ahead and click on this US Social Security number, and you can see the publisher is Microsoft. So when I click on the sensitive information type, you can see the items that have matched against the US Social Security number sensitive information type within my organization. Here we click on the matched items. You can also see how the sensitive information type is defined by Microsoft on the right-hand side and what your files would be matching against. You can also see that within the sensitive information type, you can copy the sensitive information type, you can create your own by copying it, and you can also test the sensitive information type to see which files will match against it. So I also want to briefly show you the other classification techniques. So I'm going to go back to data classification. And I'm going to be showing you trainable classifiers and exact data match, which we also call EDM. Trainable classifiers is a tool you can train to recognize various types of content by giving it samples to look at. Once it's trained, you can use it to identify items for application of office sensitivity labels, communication compliance policies, DLP, and retention label policies. Trainable classifiers tend to be used when there's content not easily identified by either the manual or automated pattern matching methods. A classifier learns how to identify a type of content by looking at hundreds of examples of the content you're interested in identifying. And there are going to be two different types of trainable classifiers. We have the pre-trained classifiers like financial statements, HR, legal affairs, etc. And then we have the custom classifiers. There is more work involved when creating your own, but they'll be much better tailored to your organization's needs. And in Preview, you can actually see the documents in your organization which match against the pre-trained classifiers in Content Explorer. The next classification technique that I want to show you is exact data match. So I'm going to click on EDM classifiers. This allows you to create custom sensitive information types that refer to exact values in a database of sensitive information. This database can be refreshed daily and can contain up to 100 million rows of data. Since this can be refreshed as records change, You're able to remain current on your most sensitive information like employee records or client information, and this is often a key aspect to many information protection deployments. So once you've taken a look at data classification, the best approach to detect the data you own is to take a look at Content Explorer in the Purview portal. This will help you discover data stored in M365 like SharePoint Online and OneDrive. So to get to Content Explorer, it is our next tab over from the sensitive information types under data classification. As a quick note, as we go into Content Explorer, you will need certain permissions to look at this tab like Global Admin. So if you are not able to see anything in Content Explorer, I would check with your organization for permissions if you don't have access. Within Content Explorer, you can see a current snapshot of the items that have a sensitivity label, a retention label, or have matched to a trainable classifier or other sensitive information type. For example, if you're just starting out and you haven't enabled your sensitivity labels, you'll be able to look at where the sensitive information types lie within your organization. So to run through an example with you, I'm going to click this drop down in sensitive information types. And actually, just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to search the US Social Security number, sensitive information type. So in this tenant, you can see that there are 217 files with Social Security number sensitive information types. This is just my demo tenant. I'm sure you will have many more. So you can drill down even further as you look into the US Social Security number and look into the OneDrive folder, for example. Double click on this. So within OneDrive in this organization, there are 41 files. I'm going to click on my specific OneDrive in this org. And then I can go ahead and click on one of these documents, actually. I'm going to click on this Social Security number test document. These are all just test Social Security numbers, but here you're able to see what the document actually looks like. That's matching against that Social Security number sensitive information type. If we go to details, we'll be able to see stuff like the sensitive information types that were shown within that document. Once you've gone through and discovered your sensitive information and you understand what may need to be labeled within your organization, it's time to start thinking about a label taxonomy. So now we'll move over to the information protection section. So it's a little bit further down on the left-hand side. Click on information protection. When you first go into the information protection tab, you will see an overview of your labels. If they've been created and published in your environment, you may be able to see more information here. If you're starting from fresh, you will want to go to the labels tab. So here's where you'd start creating your labels. To show what this looks like, I will create a new label. And just for some background here, this is our team demo environment. So we're seeing a lot of labels here. I would not suggest this in a deployment environment. So I will create a label. You're first going to add a name for the label. I will just name it test label for now. And display name, I will say Ninja Training. Below that, you're going to add a description for your users that they'll see associated with the label. I'm just going to say testing for now, and you can also add a description for your admin to see. At the bottom, you'll see the option for a label color. This is a new feature for built-in labeling and allows you to choose different colors for the labels you create. So for instance, your public information may be labeled with a green color, while your confidential information may be labeled with a red color. This helps end users see the labels and understand their significance. So for this label, I will just go ahead and label it blue. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. Here you're going to define your label scope. This decides where the label you're creating will be visible. If items is selected, you can configure settings that apply to apps that support sensitivity labels, such as Word, Outlook, and Power BI. If groups and sites is selected, you can configure settings that apply to M365 groups and sites for Teams and SharePoint. And then last, we have schematized data assets, which is in Preview. This will allow users to apply labels to files and data assets in Microsoft Purview Data Map. For the purpose of these examples, I'll select all of them to show you all of the options. I'm going to go ahead and click Next here. So for items, you'll have the option to encrypt and or mark the items. For this demo, I will click both to show you the extra options within there. So if you select encryption, you can choose to assign users certain permissions now if the label is applied, or let the end users decide on the permissions. Below that, you can choose when user access to the content with this label expires, and you can allow or disallow offline access. So for this example, I will just go ahead and assign permissions now. And to assign permissions, I click Assign Permissions towards the bottom. And I'm just going to give them to all users and groups in my organization. Means that anyone outside of the organization will not have access to items with this label. Next is our content marking. So this will allow you to add a watermark, header, or footer to content that has this label applied. I'm just going to leave this off for now, but know that you have the option there. And then the last option for items is auto labeling for files and email. If you turn this on, to show you what it looks like, I'll turn it on. So if you turn this on, when a user edits files or composes, replies to, or forwards emails from Outlook that contain the conditions you choose below, then the content will have this label automatically applied or recommended to the user. So as an example, I could say if a user is editing a Word document, and then I will add a condition, let's say, and it contains a sensitive information type, I will say credit card number for this example. So then to reiterate, if you have a user editing a Word document and it has credit card numbers, then we can choose to automatically apply the label, or we can recommend the user apply this label to the document. For now, we'll just leave it as automatically apply. Now I'm going to click Next, and now we go into the groups and site settings. For groups and sites, you can turn on privacy and external user access settings and external sharing or conditional access settings. I'll click on both for this example. Under privacy, this is the level of access that users would have to labeled Teams and M365 groups. And then next, for external, this is sharing and conditional access settings. These controls are for sharing from labeled SharePoint sites, and it allows you to use Azure AD conditional access to protect those SharePoint Online sites. Now I'm going to click Next. And now lastly, for schematized data assets, the option we have is to automatically apply this label based on sensitive information types that you choose. I'll show you what this looks like. And this label would be auto-applied to database columns in SQL, Azure Synapse, Azure Cosmos, AWS RDS, and various other data sources governed by Microsoft Purview Data Map. So now, once we finish creating our label, turn this off for now just to finish. Once we finish creating the label, you will click Create Label. I'm just going to close out of this for now. When you've created the labels you need, then you would need to publish those labels to make them visible to end users. For your basic taxonomy or labels, these are typically published to all users in your tenant. I'll go ahead and create a new policy to show you. So to do this, you will click on Publish Label, or you can go to Label Policies and then Publish Label. So now you choose the sensitivity labels that you want to be included in the sensitivity label policy. So for this case, I will choose personal, public, general, and I will choose a lot of the confidential ones that we have here. I'm going to go ahead and click next. So here's where you choose the users and groups that you want to have access to these labels. I'll just leave it as all for this example and click next. And now you have your settings. For policy settings, you can require that users in this policy provide a justification to remove or lower a label. You can also require that users apply a label to their emails and documents or Power BI content. Last, you can provide users in this label policy with a link to a custom help page to understand how to use labels in their organization. Once you've chosen all of these settings, then you have the option to configure default labels. So first you can choose to automatically apply a default label to Word, Excel, and PowerPoint docs when they're created or modified by the user's scope to this label policy. Keep in mind that users can always select a different label if it better matches the sensitivity of their document. And then moving forward, you'll also have the same options for email and Power BI content. So lastly, you would set the label name. I would just say test123 for now, and then you would hit finish. For the purpose of this, I will just go ahead and click cancel for now. Okay, so now you've created your first label and label policy. Later on in your information protection journey, you may expand beyond manual labeling and auto labeling in Office applications and move to service-side auto labeling. So this is going to be auto labeling on the right-hand side. With these auto labeling policies, you can automatically label email messages that are in transit or OneDrive and SharePoint files that are at rest and contain sensitive information. So to show you what this looks like, I will create a new auto labeling policy. We click create auto labeling policy here. So now that this loads up, we can see that there are different categories for policies. As an example, you can create a medical and health policy that complies with HIPAA regulations. See that here. To walk you through the portal, I'm just going to show you a custom policy so you can see all of the options. First, you give it a quick name. Once again, I'll just do custom policy 123. You can also give your auto labeling policy a description as well. Now you're going to be choosing the locations the policy will apply to. I'll just leave it as all for this example. So it's going to be Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And just as a note, you can also choose the users, sites, or accounts the policy is applied to. By default, it is going to be all included. So now we can either choose to apply the same rules to all locations or break it down by location. I'm just going to define one set of common rules, and then I'm going to click next. So now we go ahead and create a new rule. First, need to give it a name. And then for conditions, you can say content contains or content is shared. So I'm going to say if the content contains, I'm going to add a sensitive information type. For this one, I'm going to say login. So I'm going to say the sensitive information type is user login credentials. Add. You can also add exceptions. For this case, I'm just going to click save. And then I'm going to click next. So then we'll choose the label that should be auto-applied if there is an email in transit or file in SharePoint or OneDrive that contains user login credentials. I'm going to choose a label here. I'll choose highly confidential anyone for this use case. Add, and then I'm going to click next. So you do have additional settings here. You have an extra option for email. You can choose to replace existing labels if their priority is the same or lower. So I'm going to choose select and next. So next you can choose to run the policy in simulation mode, which will bring together matches to the policy, but it won't apply the label yet. This will help you determine if you need to modify the policy. You can also just leave the policy off for now if you're not ready to start testing out. And then after you choose that, you're done. Cancel out of this for now. So the last item that I want to mention for your information protection introduction within the Purview portal is Activity Explorer. So we're going to go back to data classification. And on the far right, we can see Activity Explorer. Within Activity Explorer, you're going to be able to see activities such as label applied and labels changed. As you begin testing, this is going to be a great place to keep an eye on and help you modify your labels. I hope this video has been very helpful for you all. Enjoy the rest of your Ninja training, and hopefully we'll be talking with you all soon. Thank you.